Alright, so let's start with this image that is an array of dots. So this is a synthetic image that I created. If we drop a depth to points here, you're gonna see the shape of the object is gonna be something like this. And the reason for that is that if we go to 2D again, and if we look at the depth channel, you are going to see that, effectively this is kind of a depth channel going into the distance from the center of the frame. Let's jump into ZOpticals. You're going to see a bunch of inputs, so 7 inputs in total. It's kind of it's a high number of inputs. That doesn't mean that you're going to be using all ZOpticals features all the time. I must say that I have built this Gizmo with full CG shots in mind, and also CG renders, but mostly full CG shots occupying the entire surface of the frame. And let's jump describing what the first tab is. So the first tab is called 3DBokeh. At the top you're going to find a few checkboxes. The first one is to enable or disable the tab completely, so it doesn't get processed in the operations of what you want to do. Maybe you just want to do some kind of aberration in here, and that's it, and that's the only reason why you're using ZOpticals in a particular comp. In that case, everything is going to be disabled by default. So if you want something to produce a result, you have to enable it. So the only tab that is enabled by default is the first one, so you can see something going on as soon as you load the Gizmo. Then you have enable or disable 3D fields. So let's see the output of this, and this is based on CD focus. So just like in CD focus, you can select an area on the frame where you want to put your focal point. So let's say we focus in here, and the reason for this checkbox is mainly for the purpose of activating both fields or not. So what you can see in this tab is these two groups in here. So you have the typical CD focus control like size, maximum, and so forth, but you have two of those. So you had a set of two, one for the background field and the other one for the foreground field. So if enable 3D fields is on, so if it's checked, both fields are gonna be calculated, and ZOpticals is gonna kind of work stereo field, and if it's disabled, it's gonna be like mono field. You're gonna be processing a two-dimensional effect in this tab. So the way that usually we work in compositing is like, the way I like to see it is both in bokeh and aberration, is if like we were throwing a curtain of an effect on top of everything, and we are seeing everything through this kind of single dimensional effect, and everything else is behind that layer of effect, right? Whether it's 3D bokeh or aberrations. Again, in optics, both bokeh and aberrations are three-dimensional, and not only that, they are also dynamic in camera movements, they are dynamic in rack focusing, they are dynamic in cameras translating in space. So the entire space in the scene is having a change in bokeh and aberration. So 3D fields is enabled. Keep bounding box is just to make sure that you keep the original bounding box if you want that or not, and the typical use GPU checkbox. The first area is data setup, where you can select which layers are going to be affected by this tab. In this case I have RGBA. In this case I can just have RGB. And this is important. So just like in a regular CD focus, you have the mask type you want to select. So this is the usual thing. You should select which math style you're using, but also you have to confirm for this particular gizmo if the C depth is far equals 1 style or not. So check if far equals 1 is what your depth is. You should check this. But in this case I'm not using this C depth style. If we go to our depth again, we can see that close equals 1 and far equals 0. But if this were to be the reverse, you have to check this, because this is what is going to make the entire gizmo and all of its tabs to have the fields, the foreground field and the background fields align in space. Otherwise everything is going to be reversed, and you don't want that. So if far equals 1, you check that. And also if you have to check the same thing here in the math as usual. We're gonna leave things like this. Then you have the depth channel, and if your depth channel is called different, let's say that for some reason the lighting artist has called the layer not depth but I don't know, C depth, dot C, or dot maybe R or red. So if this is a different name, you should place a shuffle in here, and you should create a new layer called depth and reshuffled in here. So for ZOpticals to work properly. These kind of tips, like the one I just gave you, you can find it in here. So this tip is right in here, so you have a kind of important mentions, not too complicated, but mostly what these inputs expect for the gizmo to work properly.